So let's start with the second portion. Now, before starting with the kinds of flames in oxyacetylene welding, let us see how does a flame look like. How does the flame look like? The flame will have two different colors. The flame will have two different colors. The inner portion will have red or yellow color. The outer portion will have blue color. Okay. Even the candle flames you might see, the matchstick flame, all these flames are generally having these two colors, red, yellow, blue. Okay. What does this color signify? Red or yellow signifies incomplete combustion. Red or yellow, it can be combined. Red plus yellow is orange, right? It signifies incomplete combustion. And blue signifies complete combustion. Blue signifies complete combustion. Okay. So, the inner portion is having this color. So, you can see there are two cones that are formed. So, this one is called as the inner cone and this one is called as outer cone. Okay. Now, can you tell me, Vishal is asking, but why do we see red, yellow flames every time around us? They can take as much oxygen from atmosphere. Then why incomplete combustion takes place? Very good, Vishesh. Very good. So Vishesh is asking the doubt, sir, there is so much oxygen in the atmosphere. Why incomplete combustion is taking place? Any molecule can take oxygen from the atmosphere. So every molecule should undergo complete combustion, right? That's his doubt. So what happens is, let's say this is a molecule. Okay, this is a molecule, it is traveling. So while it is traveling, it will take oxygen from the atmosphere. So that is what is happening inside the flame also. How flame is formed is, the flame is formed by the flow of the fuel molecule. For example, for our case, the fuel is acetylene. So what will happen is, C2H2 is flowing like this throughout the flame. The inner portion has just come out of the nozzle. So it has not able to absorb the oxygen from atmosphere. It was not able to absorb the oxygen from atmosphere. It will take some time. Instantly it will not get the oxygen. Okay. That's why in these portions carbon is present. That's why we are getting red or yellow in color. That's why we are getting red or yellow color. This carbon will move forward. It has reached here. By the time it has reached here, it got lot of time. To travel, and it took the oxygen from atmosphere. And because it took the oxygen from atmosphere, it was able to undergo the complete oxidation. So the reason for incomplete combustion is lack of availability of time. If the time is not available, initially we will have some carbon. So this carbon needs some time to take the oxygen from atmosphere. Because in atmosphere the oxygen is not there in pure state. Okay. It is there along with the mixture of carbon dioxide, nitrogen, hydrogen, different gases are there. So to absorb the oxygen from atmosphere, it will take some time. So out of the outer cone and inner cone, where will you get the maximum temperature? Okay, where will you get the maximum temperature? Outer cone or inner cone? Okay, we'll get maximum temperature at outer cone. Obviously their reason will be because complete combustion is taking place in the outer cone, we'll get the maximum temperature. But guys, what happens is, what is there in surrounding of outer cone? In surrounding of outer cone, you have the atmospheric air. Right? That's why heat loss is also maximum on the outer cone. Therefore, we get maximum temperature at the interface of inner cone and outer cone. We get the maximum temperature at the interface of inner cone and outer cone. That is the innermost portion of the outer cone. That is the innermost portion of the outer cone. Because that is very much inside. So it is away from the atmosphere. So heat losses will be less. Heat losses will be comparatively less. Therefore we will have maximum temperature. Okay. So maximum temperature occurs at the interface of and outer cone. Have you copied this? So let us see the different kinds of flames used for and not used for. First flame I am going to take as the neutral flame. First flame I am going to take as a neutral flame. If I write the ratio of oxygen and acetylene, O2 upon C2H2. So here we are talking about the ratio we are taking from the cylinder. Here we are talking about the ratio that we are taking from the cylinder. Then neutral flame we are taking 1 mole of oxygen and we are taking 1 mole of acetylene. So the ratio is 1. The ratio is 1. Okay. Maximum temperature. How much is the maximum temperature? Maximum temperature is 3260 degrees Celsius. 3260 degrees Celsius. Average temperature is 2000 to 2100 degrees Celsius. 2000 to 2100 degrees Celsius. Okay. You can see here that the average temperature is nearly 2/3 of the maximum temperature. Average temperature is nearly 2/3 of the maximum temperature. What could be the reason for this? What could be the reason for this? Tmax only at small inner cone. Why the rest is at lower temperature? Yeah, remaining are at lower temperature. Why? Guys, go back to the chemical reaction. Go back to the chemical reaction. In that you can see the third chemical reaction. The third chemical reaction you can see water is formed. In third chemical reaction you can see water is formed. That water absorbs the heat. That water absorbs the heat and evaporates, forming vapor. So it takes away some amount of heat. It takes away some amount of heat. That's why the average temperature is nearly 2/3 of the maximum temperature. Average temperature is nearly 2/3 of the maximum temperature. Okay? Because of the heat losses. There are different reasons for the heat losses. One is formation of water vapors. Formation of water vapors. Okay? It is used for low carbon steel, mild steel, medium carbon steel. Now Vishal is asking, is it necessary that water formed is in liquid phase? It might be in gas phase itself. It might be in gas phase itself. Yeah, that can also be there. That can also be there. It will depend upon the temperature of molecules. Okay. Low carbon steel, mild steel, medium carbon steel. It is not used for welding of. It is not used for welding of brass. Why it is not used for welding of brass is because brass is an alloy of copper and zinc. It is an alloy of copper and zinc, and this much and at this much high temperature the zinc evaporates. The zinc evaporates, leaving behind just copper. Hence, the neutral flame is not used for welding of brass. Okay. Second flame is the oxidizing flame. Here the ratio of O2 upon C2H2, it will be greater than 1. It will be greater than 1. How much greater than 1? Nearly 1.1 to 1.5. 1.15 to 1.5. Here we are taking more oxygen than the acetylene from the cylinder. Okay. Now let's talk about the maximum temperature, maximum temperature. Will the maximum temperature increase or decrease compared to the neutral flame? Will it increase or decrease compared to neutral flame? Maximum temperature will increase. Why it will increase is because since there is more oxygen, the oxygen is readily available. The oxygen is readily available for the combustion. When the oxygen is readily available for the combustion, what will happen is the flame length will decrease. Since the oxygen is readily available, it will have to take less oxygen from the atmosphere. Since it is taking less oxygen from the atmosphere, the acetylene will have to travel shorter distance. Since the acetylene is traveling shorter distance, the length of flame will reduce. Since the length of flame is reducing, the heat loss will reduce. Therefore, we will get maximum temperature. Okay, maximum temperature higher. So it is of the range 3380 degrees Celsius. 3380 degrees Celsius. Average temperature is 2100 to 2200 degrees Celsius. 2100 to 2200 degrees Celsius. Oxidizing flame is not used for welding of aluminium. Why? Because again, aluminium is highly reactive metal. So it easily reacts with the oxygen. So it is not used with welding of aluminium. In fact, one of the major problem in welding of aluminium is its high reactivity. It easily reacts with the atmospheric oxygen. So it easily gets contaminated. So that is a major problem in welding of aluminium. Reactivity. Due to high reactivity. Now next thing is, here I had mentioned that we are not able to weld the brass by using neutral flame. The reason was because of the high temperatures induced, the zinc evaporates. But in case of oxidizing flame, the temperatures induced are even higher. Right? So will we be able to weld brass? Can we weld brass in oxidizing flame? Very good. Exact reason. What will happen is, we can weld brass in oxidizing flame. The reason is, let us suppose here all the molten metal are collected. Here. Okay. What happens is, here we are using excess oxygen. So this excess oxygen will react with zinc. And it will form a layer of zinc oxide. And this layer of zinc oxide prevents further evaporation of the zinc. A layer of zinc oxide is formed on the top and it prevents further evaporation of the zinc. Okay, understood? Due to further evaporation of the zinc, which prevents further evaporation of zinc. Now let us see the third flame. The third flame is carburizing flame. Carburizing flame is also called as reducing flame. It will also be called as reducing flame. And again the ratio O2 upon C2H2. This time we are taking lesser amount of oxygen compared to acetylene. Therefore this ratio will be 0.85 to 0.95. 0.85 to 0.95. Okay. This time the maximum temperature will reduce. It is 3040 degrees Celsius. Average temperature is 1800 to 1900 degrees Celsius. It is not used for. Now what happens here is, you can see Vishal is asking, grey cast iron also requires oxidizing flame. Grey cast iron requires carbonizing flame. Grey cast iron requires carbonizing flame. Okay, it will depend upon how much percentage of carbon is there. Some grey cast iron requires oxidizing, some requires carbonizing. Okay. Okay. So you can see here, we are having more carbon compared to oxygen. So it means the flame is rich in carbon. The flame is rich in carbon. Okay. Now if we are using ferrous metal, these ferrous metals are having very good affinity for carbon. They are having very good affinity for carbon. Because of this good affinity, what will happen is, they will easily absorb carbon. They will easily absorb carbon. And when the ferrous metals absorb carbon, they become more and more brittle. They will become more and more brittle. And because of this increased brittleness, the properties are changing. Always the increased brittleness is not desirable. Okay, we always want some ductility, right? So, therefore, the carbonizing flame is not used for welding of ferrous metals. Why? Because they absorb carbon very easily, and they are used for the welding of high carbon steel. They are used for the welding of high carbon steel and grey cast iron. They are used for the welding of high carbon steel and grey cast iron. Now you may think, sir, even high carbon steel and grey cast iron are ferrous in nature. Then how can you weld them? The thing is, they are already very much saturated with carbon. They are already very much saturated with carbon, and they won't easily absorb the carbon. So therefore, we don't have any problem of carbon absorption and increase in brittleness with high carbon steel and with grey cast iron. Therefore, for the welding of high carbon steel and grey cast iron, we go for carbonizing flame. Hence, they don't easily absorb carbon. Can aluminium be welded by carbonizing flame? Yes, you can weld aluminium by carbonizing flame, but the thing is, still it is not preferred. Why it is not preferred is because in atmosphere, again, there is oxygen. So this oxygen can react with the aluminium. So whenever you are welding aluminium, you always go for a protective atmosphere. We use a shielding gas. Okay. So generally we don't use gas welding for aluminium. We use some different forms of arc welding, like TIG welding. You might have heard the name. Then, sorry, asking, sir, hydrogen embrittlement is different from this. Hydrogen and embrittlement is different. What happens is, at the time of welding, hydrogen gases evaporate because of the impurities, and because of the presence of hydrogen gases inside the weld cracks. That is called as hydrogen embrittlement. Okay, Saurabh, that will come later. Exactly, we don't need to go into the deeper portions of hydrogen embrittlement. So that is different. Can zinc be welded? Is been asked by Hirimat. No, we cannot weld zinc by this. Like brass, we cannot weld brass with this. The reason is, again, high temperatures. High temperatures are there. At this high temperatures, evaporation will take place. In oxidizing flame, what we had was, in oxidizing flame, we had an excess layer of zinc oxide. That zinc oxide was preventing the evaporation. But here we won't be able to form that extra layer of zinc oxide. Please tell about bronze. For different, these are some peculiar cases, and these are the cases that you can expect in GATE. GATE does not expect you to memorize everything. Okay. So for all other metals, it is not necessary to memorize what you have to use. Okay. If you want just for the knowledge, you can refer the textbook. But again, I will not recommend that, because mugging up things, the things in which require mugging up, are not generally asked in the GATE. Okay? For smaller exams, even smaller exams won't ask this. Tell me the answer for this question. The temperature of carburizing flame is lower than that of neutral or oxidizing flame. Obviously. In oxyacetylene gas welding, the temperature at the middle of the cone of the flame is around. Option B, 3200 degrees Celsius. Yes. C. First of all, they have not mentioned that talking about which flame, right? It can be any flame. It can be oxidizing, it can be carburizing, it can be neutral. But since they have not mentioned anything, we'll take it as neutral flame. So in neutral flame, what is the maximum temperature? It is 3260, like about 3200 degrees. Even if you are not able to decode that, like we have to take neutral flame or not, by eliminating the options also you can see the maximum temperature was occurring in oxidizing flame, that too was 3380 degrees. That was approximately 3400 degrees. So option A is wrong. Minimum temperature that was occurring, it was carburizing flame, it was 3040 degrees, that is approximately 3000 degrees. So even option C and option D are wrong. On basis of that, option B is the most correct answer. Option B is the most correct answer. Okay. It's something called as torch angle. Let us say that this is one workpiece. The angle between the flame and the angle between the workpiece, angle between the axis of the flame and axis of the workpiece, is called as the torch angle. So this is the torch angle. So I have drawn two cases. This is case 1, this is case 2. In which case we have higher torch angle? In which case we have higher torch angle? Obviously the case 1 we have the higher torch angle. Okay. Next thing is flame density. Next thing is flame density. Flame density is heat supplied upon area exposed. Heat supplied upon area. Flame density is heat supplied upon area exposed. Okay. Now, in both the cases we are using same flame. I have not mentioned anything about the flame, so let us assume we are using same flame. Okay. It means the heat supplied is same in both the cases. Now let us see the area exposed in both the cases. Let us see the area exposed. Out of case 1 and case 2, in which case more area is exposed? In which case more area is exposed? Out of the case 1 and case 2, in which case more area is exposed? Yes, very good. 2. In 2 you can see approximately this much area is under the flame. Right? In the case 1, maximum is this area under the flame. So in case 2 you can see that more area is exposed. More area is exposed under the flame. It means for the case 2 area exposed is high. If area exposed is high, the flame density is less. The flame density is less. Right? So you can say as the torch angle increases, torch angle I am writing as TA, area exposed decreases and hence the flame density increases. So please draw these diagrams. Torch angle is the angle between axis of the workpiece and axis of the flame. Okay. Flame density is heat supplied upon area exposed. As the torch angle increases, area exposed decreases, and hence flame density increases. Please copy this. Guys, what is the significance? If in a smaller area the heat is concentrated, it means you will easily reach higher temperature. And you will easily melt the plate. If on a larger area the heat is concentrated, it means it will take some time for the temperature to rise and for the plates to get melted. Right? So, higher the flame density for a particular area, if flame density is high, it means you are supplying more heat. Higher the flame density, rate of heating, and higher will be the. Now let us see in which places we use what kind of flame density. First one, the topic we can keep as selection of torch angle. The topic we can keep as selection of torch angle. Okay. So in this, the first one is for joining of high melting point plates. For joining of high melting point plates. What kind of torch angle will you require? Will you require high torch angle or will you require low torch angle? See, obviously it is high, very good guys. High melting point plates, it means we'll have to reach higher temperature. For reaching higher temperature, we'll have to use high flame density. High flame density means high torch angle. High flame density means high torch angle. Hence high torch angle. Same explanation will be for, again, if the thickness is high, you will have to supply more heat. You will have to supply more heat so that the plates are getting melted. The plates are thick. So to melt this much amount of material, you will have to supply large amount of heat. You will have to supply large amount of heat in a small time. For that you will need high flame density and hence high torch angle. In flame density formula, heat supplied is in rate. No, it is not exactly in, like calculation I have not seen, but it can be in rate, because for a flame you will be measuring how much heat is coming out from the flame every time. So it can be in the form of heat rate. It can be in the form of rate, because in case of flame you will be measuring how much heat is coming out. Joule is the heat. When you talk about rate, it will be joule per second, right? So here again, for joining of high thickness plate, high flame density is needed, hence high torch angle will be used. Third is for high conductivity plate. For high conductivity plates, what kind of torch angle will you use? High or low? For high conductivity plates, what kind of torch angle are you going to use? High or low? Okay guys, let us suppose this is a plate that I want to weld. These are the two plates. One plate, second plate. In between I have the crack. Okay. Now if the plate is having very high thermal conductivity and I am supplying heat. So whatever heat I am supplying, this heat will be easily dissipated throughout the plate. Right? When the heat is easily dissipated, very less heat will be available here. And this heat will not be sufficient for the welding to take place. This heat will not be sufficient for the melting to take place. Okay. Hence, we'll have to supply large amount of heat. In each area, we'll have to supply large amount of heat. Hence, to supply large amount of heat, we'll keep the flame density high. And therefore, we'll have to keep the torch angle high. Okay. Due to high conductivity, the heat dissipation to the base metal will be high. Lesser heat will be available for the welding. Hence, lesser heat will be available for the welding. Therefore, we need to supply large amount of heat. The flame density and hence torch angle should be high. Fourth one is the location of welding. I'll again come back to the same example. Let's say this is a crack that I want to weld. Okay, this is a crack that I want to weld. So, I'm starting the welding from here. Okay, So this is the starting of the welding. as of now the plates are at room temperature. As of now the plates are at room temperature, and for us to bring the plates to the melting point temperature, we'll have to supply large amount of heat. We'll have to supply large amount of heat, right? Initially the plates are at room temperature, and to bring these plates to melting point temperature, we'll have to supply large amount of heat. Hence, initially we'll keep the torch angle high. Initially we'll keep the torch angle high. Now, as we are moving forward, we are doing the welding, right? We are doing the welding. So what will happen is, let's suppose when you are welding here, the heat will transfer in all the directions. The heat will transfer in this direction also. So this portion is already heated up, this portion is already heated up, this portion is already heated up. Like this, the last portion will get heated up, So by the time you come to the last portion, what will happen? A large portion of molten metal will be collected here. Because this portion was receiving heat throughout the length. Okay, a large portion of molten metal would have been collected here. Now, here if we are using high torch angle, what will happen? Because of the force of the flame is in high torch angle, the flame is directly perpendicular. So, the force of the flame will be high. Because of the force of the flame, whatever molten metal has formed, it will flow out. And here no molten metal will be available for the welding. Leaving behind a cavity. This cavity is called as crater defect. Okay. So instead, we'll have to reduce the torch angle so that the force of the flame is not concentrated here. We'll have to reduce the torch angle. So you can say that at the beginning of welding, we'll keep the torch angle high, and at the end of the welding, we'll keep the torch angle low. Did you understand this point? Please start writing. At the beginning of welding, since the plates are at room temperature, large amount of heat will have to be supplied. So that the plates come to the melting point temperature. Therefore, we'll use high flame density. And high torch angle. Therefore, we'll use high flame density and high torch angle at the beginning of welding. Next point. At the end of welding, since this portion is already heated up, because of the conduction of heat, from the other portions, a pool of molten metal, POOL, a pool of molten metal will be collected here. a pool of molten metal will be collected here. And if we use high torch angle, and if we use high torch angle, and if we use high torch angle, this pool of molten metal will flow out. This pool of molten metal will flow out. This pool of molten metal will flow out. Leaving behind a cavity, leaving behind a cavity, leaving behind a cavity called as the crater defect, called as the crater defect, called as the crater defect, leaving behind a cavity called as the crater defect. Okay. Next is welding technique. Next is welding technique. Let us say this is the plate we are welding, and this much portion we have already welded. This much portion we have already welded. Here is the flame. The flame is moving in this direction. I'll make the arrow here. The flame is moving in this direction. This is already welded portion, and this is the flame. This time also the flame is moving in this direction. Do you know the names? First of all, do you know the difference between first and second? Can you see the difference? Left hand, right hand. Okay. Surya is saying high torch angle and less torch angle. That is one way of seeing. Other ways, you can see here the flame is focused towards already welded portion. The flame is focused towards already welded portion, and here the flame is focused towards the non-welded portion. The flame is focused towards non-welded portion. Right? This is already welded. This is already welded. The first one is called as backhand welding technique. First one is called as backhand welding technique. The second one is called as forehand welding technique. In backhand welding technique, the flame is focused towards already welded portion. Already welded portion. Here, the flame is focused towards non-welded portion. Okay. Okay, guys. If you remember, after the welding, we used a chipper and we strike the welded portion. We strike the welded portion, and a thin layer of metal or something was removed from the welding. Did you do that? Did something like that happen? Throughout the welded portion, you used a chipper and you strike the welded portion with a chipper to remove a layer of material. Do you remember that? Okay, I'll tell you what happens is we use flux powder. It is having some properties. What are the properties of flux powder? That I'll tell you when we study about flux powder. Okay, so one of the main properties to dissolve the impurities. So that flux will melt and it will dissolve the impurities. So all the impurities and the burnt flux, they keep floating on the molten metal. Let's suppose this is the portion between two plates. This is the molten metal. On the top of the molten metal, a layer will keep floating. This layer is called as slag. What is slag? That all we'll see later. But main purpose of the slag is to remove the contact of atmosphere with the molten metal. Since the molten metal is not in contact with the atmosphere, it won't get oxidized. It won't absorb any impurities. Okay. So on the top of the molten metal, a thin layer keeps floating. That is called as slag. Okay. So slag keeps floating. Now let us take two examples. I am standing here. If a person is standing here, okay, and I am pushing that person, okay, behind that person is a slope. Behind that person is a slope. So since I am pushing that person, he will go up the slope. He will go up the slope, right? So that is one case. Now again, there is another person, but behind him there is no slope. There is no slope, but there is a hole. There is a hole. So this time, if I push him, he will go inside the hole. He will fall down inside the hole, right? So there are two cases. In one case, when I push the person, he went up the slope. In the other case, when I push the person, he went inside the hole. Something similar is happening here. See, this is a side view of the plates. This is a side view of the plates. If you look at the plates from here, they will appear like this. They will appear like this. Okay? There will be two plates. In between the plates, molten metal is there. So here, throughout, there is a layer of slug. Here there will be a layer of slug. Now, because of the force of the flame, the slag, because of the force of the flame, the slag will travel here. The slag will travel here, like this. So throughout, a uniform layer of slag will be formed. But in this case, whatever slag is present, because of the force of the flame, it will enter the molten metal. The slag will enter the molten metal, and when it will solidify, the slag will become a part of the molten metal. Which will reduce the strength of the welding. And it is called a defect called as slag inclusion. So you can say that in forehand welding technique, there are higher chances of slag inclusion. In backhand welding technique, there are lesser chances of slag inclusion. Did you understand this point? What I am telling you guys, this already welded portion. What is this already welded portion? Over already welded portion, you will see a thin layer is formed. That thin layer is nothing but a layer of solidified slag. It is a layer of solidified slag. Slag is nothing but a protective layer. So if you look at the metals from this side, what you will see is there are two plates. And in between the two plates, we have the molten metal. And on the top of the molten metal, the slag is floating. So similarly, here also throughout, some crack is there, and on top of that crack, slag is floating. Now, because of the force of the flame, the flame is focused towards this sloped portion, right? Because of the force of the flame, this slag will go up. Like this. Okay? And it will become a part of this. After solidification, we'll break it and remove the slag. But in this portion, there is no support to the slag. So when the force of the flame is acting on this portion, the slag will go in. It will become a part of the molten metal. It will enter the molten metal. It will become a part of the molten metal. And when the molten metal gets solidified, the slag will become a part of the weld. It will reduce the strength of the weld, and this will be called as a defect. The name of the defect is slag inclusion. Did you understand? Okay. A uniform layer over the weld, Here you can see the flame is focused towards already welded portion. So this portion is already welded. So some heat will be reaching this portion also. So you are supplying the heat post the welding also. So therefore post heating is taking place. Here this portion is not welded. And because of the flame, some heat is reaching this portion also. this portion also, that is some heat is reaching before the welding. So therefore we will say preheating is taking place. Preheating is taking place here. So here post heating of weld is taking place. Post heating of weld is taking place. What is post heating? What is preheating? That will be covered in more depth. Here, preheating of the weld is taking place. Preheating of the weld is taking place. Okay. So this is about the welding technique.